Because what used to be a big problem at 6 figures, actually now at 7 figures, is a small problem. Let me give you a quick example. Welcome back to the 7-Figure Educator Podcast. My name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I'm a former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad, and full-time entrepreneur running a 7-figure education consulting business. And I'm your host. I am super excited for us to jump into the topic of today's episode, which is one that I specifically and intentionally picked to have a conversation around the things we don't typically talk about when we talk about a 7-figure education consulting business or a 7-figure business, period. Most folks are talking about 7-figure businesses and they're focusing on the revenue part, right? The part that feels good, the part that's most exciting, which is the bottom line, the number. And what a lot of people aren't talking about is they are not talking about the things that you have to give up in order to have a 7-figure education consulting business. I like to call this process the pruning process. This is a process that you go through spiritually, mentally, socially, emotionally, from a professional standpoint, where you have to reassess the things that are no longer serving you, and they may have served you when you got to 6 figures, but they will no longer serve you when you're on your way to 7 figures. So during this episode, I wanted to share with you 3 examples of the type of pruning that you are going to have to do if your desire is to have a 7-figure business. The first type of pruning, I want you to hold your wig because I might snatch it with this one. But the first type of pruning, the first thing that you are going to have to be willing to give up is you are going to have to kick fear out of the driver's seat. You are going to have to move fear to the passenger seat of your vehicle. Yes, entrepreneurship is scary. Yes, it is constantly redefining your goals. Yes, it's constantly making the ceiling the floor. And if you are growing a business, you are going to consistently have to be operating and moving from a space of vision and not making decisions from fear. So that doesn't mean that fear doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that fear completely goes away. It just means that fear can no longer be driving the car. So when you are growing a business, you have to take risk. And here's what I know as someone who's grown my business past the 7-figure mark is that the risks don't get smaller. The risks grow. The risks get bigger, which means likely the fear is going to grow as well. And what you can't do is make decisions from the fear. What you can't do is allow fear to drive the car. You have to simply move it to the passenger seat, right? The goal is not to move fearlessly per se, because you are doing something new. So it is going to feel scary. Like, let's just name that. So the goal is to move fear from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. You have to give up fear being your primary decision maker. Because if you allow fear to continue to be the place in which you make decisions from, you will continue to play small, you will continue to shrink, and 7 figures will move further and further away than it has to be. So that's the first aspect of pruning, is you are going to have to give up making decisions from fear. You're going to have to give up fear being in the driver's seat and intentionally move it to the passenger seat. The second type of pruning that I wanted to share with you is how you think about problems. So you are going to have to give up whatever definition you have on how you define a problem in your business. When you are moving to 7 figures, the big problems actually have to become small problems because you're taking up more space. Because you are now more visible than ever before, you are going to have a hater. You are going to have a naysayer. Because according to French Montana, if you ain't got a hater, then you ain't popping, right? And so a part of your journey to 7 figures is recognizing that with more increase comes more things that you're going to have to hold, more things that you're going to have to manage. And that shouldn't discourage you from the journey. But if you expect it when it happens, it positions you to better manage it. So part of the journey to seven figures is actually redefining what a big problem is. Because what used to be a big problem at six figures, actually now at seven figures, is a small problem. Let me give you a quick example. As I've grown my business to the seven-figure mark, I have had more people have more opinions about my business. I've had more naysayers. I've had more people attempt to copy me in my business. And the first time that it happened, honestly, it felt very overwhelming, right? Because it felt like a betrayal almost. And these aren't people that I necessarily knew, but it felt personal. And a part of me shifting my mindset and a part of me continuing to go and press forward as I'm growing my business to and through the seven-figure mark is I have to accept that that is what comes with playing big. That actually, if everybody agrees with me, I'm not playing big enough. If others don't feel inclined to copy me, then I haven't solidified my position in the marketplace, right? So a part of your growing to seven figures is making a big problem actually a small problem. Think about Nike. Consider how many legally things that they have to deal with. I feel like every time I open up my social media feed, I see another trademark infringement suit, right? Because folks are constantly copying Nike, and that's just a part of the game. So part of your journey to seven figures is redefining a problem and making the big problems small problems. And third and finally, when we're talking about the pruning process, the things that you're going to have to give up, you are going to have to accept that you will outgrow certain people, places, and things. So finally, the third type of pruning that you're going to experience on your journey towards seven figures is that you are going to outgrow certain people, places, and things. You will not stay the same, which means that your environment is going to shift. You're going to have to change your environment. You're going to start feeling out of place. You're going to start feeling like an outlier because you are not the same person and not in the same place where you were a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. In order to run and grow a seven-figure business, you have to evolve your identity. You have to evolve your relationship with money. You have to evolve how you spend your time. You have to evolve your priorities, which means when you were in certain places with certain people who were with you when you were at the 5-figure or 6-figure, they may not have the same priorities as you, and that's okay. However, part of that is recognizing that there might be a little bit of grief that you're going to have to go through because you are going to have to prune yourself from certain people and certain places. And that doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you, oh, you acting brand new. That just means that you are further living into the calling that's over your life and you're further living into the vision that's over your business. So those are the 3 types of pruning that you're going to have to experience on your journey to seven figures. You are going to have to move fear into the passenger seat. You're going to have to redefine how you define a problem because the big problems now need to become small problems. And you are going to have to expect that you will outgrow certain people, places, and things. And know when these things happen, it is a sign, an indication that seven figures is around the corner. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the 7-Figure Educator Podcast, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.